Hello, everybody. This is Mayor Mac Womack, and we wanted to come on and talk to you a little bit about today about what's happening at the municipal building. We know it's been a long time since we've had all of our services in the North Brunswick Municipal Building, and we know that people who work for the township are spread out around town. So we wanted to real quickly tell you why this happened. Most of you know, but we want to make sure that you understand what's happened. We want to talk about what we've done to fix the municipal building. And most importantly, we want to give you the schedule of when we think, although we're not making any promises, when we think we're going to be back in that building and working from there. We've sort of got the team of people who've been working around that project with us today. So I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves real quickly, starting with our business administrator, Ms. Progebin.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Justine Progebin. I'm the business administrator for the township. I've been working, and I'll let them introduce themselves, with some of the team members that are on, specifically Pete Campisano with USA Architects, as well as Mike Moriarty with Meridian Strategic. But I'll let you, again, introduce yourselves. And we've just been going through this process, working with the various professionals, awarding through separate contracts to come in towards this. But again, I don't want to speak for Pete if you want to introduce yourself before getting into any of that.
Mr. Campisano?
Pete Campisano with USA Architects, with the architects for the township and also the school district. Proud enough to have constructed the new middle school on 130. But more importantly, we're called in soon after Hurricane Ida to offer support to the township. Oftentimes when this happens, insurance companies come in and the township wanted to be absolutely sure that their best interests were being represented. And that's what we have been doing and fighting for you every step of the way, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Campisano. What is the story with the work of art behind you? Is there a story there?
Actually, there is. That is a small little restaurant in Aruba. And my future mother-in-law and father-in-law brought my wife to be and I to the island. We were engaged. It was all good. It's called Chez Matilda. And it was a special restaurant, and that was a gift from her parents on our wedding day, just to remind us of what, when we were courting each other. But it's an old time restaurant in Aruba.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And Mr. Moriarty, if you would
good afternoon.
Yeah,
Mayor, Mike Moriarty, and I'm with Meridian Strategic Services. I'm serving as the FEMA advisor to the township on the FEMA claim, and also project manager on the insurance claim side of the house, supporting Justine and Chief Battaglia and the entire mayor and council.
And what is the artwork behind you, Mr. Moriarty?
Like I'm in a museum. No, it's a historic print of our town, Pottersville, New Jersey, in Tewksbury Township. And my wife decided that she was going to get these from the local historic commission when our kids all moved out of the house, so they could have, something from the town they grew up in. And she got an extra one for us. So that's what it is.
A good project for North Brunswick, Ms. Progebin. Let's remember that. And Police Chief Battaglia, I know you've been intimately involved, because we've got to make sure that as we move back in the municipal building, the police side is done right.
That's correct, Mayor. Chief Joe Battaglia. I've been assisting Justine and Mike Moriarty and Pete Campisano with the reconstruction of the building and the police department. And I don't have any artwork behind.
So, point one, Hurricane Ida came, dumped a lot of rain, more than we had experienced in our generation in that short a period of time. And we found out something that no one knew before, and that is that our municipal building was sitting in an area where the water would rush. It would flow and rush. It had not happened before in all the years that the municipal building and predecessor buildings had been there because of the amount of the flow and the direction of the flow and the backup from the sewers. But once that happened, the water rushed into our municipal building. We had storm doors at some point that the water was so strong that blew them open. It displaced all the furniture in the basement as it came in, and the municipal building was flooded. And because of the area it came into, our HVAC, heating, cooling, climate control was all affected. And we had insurance people on the scene very quickly thereafter, and there were contractors on the scene very quickly thereafter. But it was not something that they were able to do to prevent mold and other subsequent damage from also creeping in. And as a result of that, we've had to essentially reconstruct much of the municipal building. Now you ask, why, if you just had an inside flood and you had some molding, why do I see you putting all new bricks and everything around? I'll let Mr. Campisano address that briefly.
Yes,
But I
sir.
think that's the explanation for how we got here. Is there anything else anybody to add to why we are where we are? If not, then Pete,
Yes,
let
yes,
me
sir.
jump to point 3 real quick.
Go ahead,
And
Mayor.
anybody who doesn't care about point 2 can turn us off. When are we likely to be back in the municipal building? Justine, do you want to take a go at that?
Sure. So our mechanical engineer isn't on. That's been working with Pete hand in hand with the contracts, but he is working through this on Pete's side with the internal construction. They're dealing with, as you pointed out, the mechanical room. That is the biggest piece of the building. Is the mechanical room was in the basement. They are working through that, and with Pete on the construction side, and they're doing a phased approach.
And
We
we'll
are
be
still-
back in the
We're
building.
we're still looking for the first week or 2 of July is where we're going to be back in on a phased approach, tackling that, what we call the front circular part, the council meeting, the courtroom,
So
the clerk's
July,
office.
July, that the middle of the municipal building will be in.
Yes,
And
and it
what's
will
the
be
next phase?
most likely accessed through the police parking lot. The trailers will be gone on the police parking lot as far
What's
as
the
that.
next, yeah, I know you live and love the details, you and
I
Mr.
do, sorry.
Moriarty. But we'll be in that first part in July. And then what's the next part that's gonna open?
They're working on the police side thereafter by August.
And after that,
They're working on the 3rd floor on the admin side, which is the administration, the mayor, and that back area that will be also accessible for public use, the big council room, court, chamber up there will be accessed hopefully September. It does sound like once all that mechanics comes online, it goes pretty quickly, that will be buttoned up, Pete, probably available once the windows come in. The windows are a big piece of it. I'll let Pete speak on that, but that's really a driving force of getting everything else back in.
so the middle of the building, the courthouse, the clerk's office, luckily July, unless something bad happens, we'll be in there in July. August, we'll be able to be back in, and the police department will be able to have their full operations where they've always had them over in that area.
Correct.
And then in the fall, September, if we're lucky, the other services, if you want to visit the mayor's office, if you want to come in and see the tax assessor or the other departments like that and do your business in the town, you can probably get in the fall, and we'll be doing them all again from this central location. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
The only thing that would be closed at that point would be that 1st floor admin, and that is for, slated for our future projects that we're still working through.
So when someone says to you, when are they ever going to be back in that municipal building? Starting in July, we're going to be having court there. And then August, September will be spreading out and going into the rest of the building. Mr. Campisano, are there any details that people
Yeah.
really ought to know about?
Absolutely, Mayor, and you raised an excellent point as to the length of time. It was more than just a flood, and I want people to understand that it was more than just a flood. This was an absolute dynamic, perfect storm where water not only came in from below, it also came down from above. We brought in engineers from, Justine, help me remember, was it Ohio? No, not important. But they did rainfall analysis, and this storm dumped more water in less time than Hurricane Sandy and other major storms over the last 30 years. So water not only got in from below, it also got in from above, and it got behind the brick cavity. And what's behind the brick cavity? Gypsum sheathing. You could call it sheetrock, exterior wallboard that we believed was wet, and we fought with the insurance companies who did not believe it was wet. So there was a lot of downtime arguing back and forth. The township, rightly so, took the proactive step to correct it. But here's the kicker. In order to access that gypsum and remove it and replace it, we had to remove the brick. And if we had to remove the brick, we also had to remove the windows. So it's something that is done. We've done it before. It's unfortunate, but that is what we're in the process of doing now. We're about 75%. You can start to look at the new facade along Herman Road, and you'll see that it is different and improved from the original 1990 building, and it is to today's codes, not the codes from 30 years ago. And we're putting back a much stronger building and more resilient building.
Thank you, Pete. We appreciate all the work you've really been there for us throughout this process, and
It was not anticipated in September of 21, but as it grew, as we discovered things, as we fought for you, Mayor, you know that this had to get done. It was the right thing to do. Instead of opening a year ago with this overhead, you took the right choice and did the right way. Let's say it that way.
And Mr. Moriarty, I know that from a young age, you wanted to grow up and be a FEMA insurance specialist. The insurance has been a frustrating part of all this, and we appreciate your expertise in helping us guide through it. Is there anything you'd want to add, Michael, to what we've been talking about with regard to the reconstruction of the building?
Yeah, Mayor. So two things. First would be that FEMA, requires that the township have insurance, and that if they do, that's first. That gets first to pay for any restoration. But if there's gaps in the insurance or things are not covered that needed to be repaired, then FEMA would come and cover those costs as long as they're eligible costs. But Pete talked about the restoration, the damage, and what needed to be restored. So FEMA also has what's called a mitigation program, which is to, while you're restoring things, you want to make them better so that you don't have similar type of damage from a similar storm in the future. So one of the things that Pete recommended was to move the gutters out from where they sat. The Yankee gutters sat on top of the masonry walls, and that contributed to the water coming in from above. So his recommendation was to move those gutters out, meaning build out eaves on the roof and then move the gutters 2.5 feet out and have the drains out there, so we wouldn't have a similar problem. Well, to do that, although the roof wasn't damaged in the storm, we had to replace the roof to build out those eaves. So that was part of the mitigation. So FEMA mitigation funds are funding the roof and gutters system, as well as other components to make sure that we don't have similar damage in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Again, we really appreciate everything you continue to do for us, because yours is an area that really requires some expertise. Chief Battaglia?
Just one thing I think it's important to point out when Pete said that we believe that the gypsum was damaged and the insurance company didn't. When we did remove the brick, we were right. The gypsum was damaged by the storm, and that's why we had to go through that whole process.
Thank you, Chief. I think if you feel as a resident or you run into your neighbors and they all tell you that, well, this is sure taking a long time, I think everybody you see here would 100% agree. Everything that we've dealt with our insurance companies has not been always easy and continues not to always be easy. And we have made the decision more than once that trying to save taxpayer monies by recovering as much insurance funds as possible is more important than getting the building up quicker. So that's a conscious decision that myself and council members have made, but we think it's the right one because we've got a wonderful workforce here in North Brunswick. And while it hasn't been easy for them to provide all the services that you need from different parts and different buildings around town, they've done a wonderful job of doing that. They've been able to accommodate, and that's given us the opportunity to get this building rebuilt at as little expense to taxpayers as possible. So that's an important factor. If you have questions about any of this, feel free to call the mayor's office, 732-247-0922, extension 200. And either myself or my assistant, Ms. Larkin, will get you to the right person who can answer your question, and we can let you know what's going on, what kind of schedule you might look for in the future, or answer whatever other questions you have. Does anybody else have anything you want to throw in before we go? Many thanks to Craig Yetzko for working with us to make sure that we're able to do this. We'll be back to give you updates again in a few weeks. We want to try to keep you apprised of where we are as we begin opening up the building. Everybody have a wonderful day.